Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 114, and in this episode I'm joined by Suzanne Davison as we talk about how to not settle in your relationship. Suzanne Davison is a highly experienced and respected therapist and coach. She has over 10 years experience working as a qualified clinical hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, life and business coach. She's helped teenagers, adults and families navigate their way through the trials and tribulations of family, business and school life. Over her many years of experience, she's accumulated all of her best bits and created a unique 4-step process called Get You, Get Others, empowering people to make real positive change in their lives. Her mission in life is to help educate as many people as possible to learn about themselves and others so we can prevent mental health issues in the future. So Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a very interesting episode for you listening to this because I'm going to open up a little bit. So normally I'm just asking questions and having a wonderful conversation, which we are going to have, but I'm actually going to share some insights into my own life and what's been going on in 2021. So we've just heard how wonderful Suzanne is, and we're really grateful to have you on the show. But I got in contact with you this year after a relationship broke down, and I had known of you for some time, and I, like in lots of areas of life, when I want to improve and I want to develop, I seek out people that I believe can help solve the problem and get me to learn more and move forward. And having got to know you through various other people and whatnot, I thought, yeah, let's have a conversation. When I met you, and that work that we did together was extremely beneficial. And that's really what I want to share with the people that are listening to this today, about how to not settle in a relationship, how to basically go through some of the stuff that we've gone through this year with me of overcoming the breakup, not settling, and learning about the behaviors that meant that I was in a particular relationship, and how to not be in those sort of relationships in the future, which I think will be quite interesting. So what I would love to start with, just to really set the scene for people, is when I came to see you and the challenge that I had. How would you describe what that challenge was and what it was that we solved?
What I feel was you'd had a light bulb moment too late. I feel like you'd been in a relationship that had been just going along the way, and suddenly your ex-partner had had enough, and it was at that moment that you suddenly stopped and learned more about relationships. But it was that little bit too late, because I feel like you were then feeling quite out of control because you couldn't then go back and make it better. So you were stuck with all of this emotion that kind of just went, I don't know now what to do. I can see perhaps where the mistakes or the errors happened, but you couldn't actually do anything about it. So you was in this kind of uncomfortable place that goes, I'm quite out of control right now. And you was also, for me, confused, because I remember, well, the first thing you said to me was, I don't kind of get therapy. I understand coaching, I understand personal development, I understand today is the only place that I can make a change. I can't go back and make a change. So for me, it was the bit where you were lacking little bits of the jigsaw puzzle to kind of be able to put it together to understand yourself that little bit more. But for me, it was more of this frustration of, I can't actually go back, and put something right. So what do I do with that? And that's when I think I first met you. You'd had this huge light bulb moment, realized what you could do to make things better, but the person wasn't there to work with you.
Yeah. So just to put it in a bit of context, so I've been in a relationship, and then like I suppose lots of relationships, there was breakdown in communication, and I summarize it as I could have been a better boyfriend. You know, I hadn't cheated on them or had anything like that. It was just I could have been a better, I think the saying sort of too little, too late. And one of my strengths, but every strength has a weakness, right? Is that I'm very like, what's the problem? Let's solve it. Let's deal with it. Let's move forward. I'm very go, 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 go. And we're going to talk about shapes later and the different shapes and identifying what shape you are. And I was like that in my relationship. The work wheel was the relationship wheel rather than realizing that I can have different traits and I can behave in different ways, which essentially meant that I pushed the relationship too far. And in hindsight, yeah, there's things I would have gone back and changed. But what was interesting is that when we did the work and went through things, what we also identified is that actually maybe we wasn't really compatible in the beginning anyway, and that's what's really interesting. We're definitely going to be talking about that. So to give you guys a bit of concept, this isn't going to be just me talking about how bad my relationship was the whole time. There are going to be some lessons in it for you about how shit a boyfriend that I was, but we are going to make sure there's some lessons in this for you. But what before we go into that, Suzanne, you have a mission, and your mission is to help educate as many people as possible to learn about themselves and others, to prevent mental health issues in the future.
Yeah.
Extremely admirable. Why?
Well, for me, I've always been a very happy-go-lucky person growing up. I just sort of bounced through life, didn't take anything too seriously. So never knew about any sort of mental health issues, didn't even know about therapy, and was just kind of this genuinely just happy-go-lucky person until I became a parent. And for me, all of a sudden, I had different dynamics in my house. I had different people to me, because in being a mum, if I didn't like somebody, I just wouldn't hang around with them anymore. Or if I was in a relationship, I'd leave the relationship. But suddenly becoming a mum, you can't go, oh, I'm not sure about my child. Can I kind of get rid of them, please? Or exchange them for somebody that's more like me.
Take it back to the shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a refund.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was this, because obviously being a parent, nobody knows what they're doing. So we're just trying to do better than what our parents did. But it's a very challenging job when you have two children that are very different. So I was always a working mum, a busy mum, and we kind of got into these teenage years. So, sorry, just to go back, I retrained as a therapist when I had a bit of a midlife crisis when I was sort of like 39, and just thought, oh my God, I'm nearly 40. My life isn't enough. And everybody around me just went, be grateful for what you have. You've got nice kids, you've got an okay job. Everything was just ordinary, which for my personality profile isn't enough. So I suddenly wanted to go and retrain. So then I had this kind of like moment where I started to learn about personal development and therapy and everything else. So then I thought then I was going to be an awesome mum, because I had all this knowledge, and obviously I was just going to make my children perfect. And then we got into teenage years, and my daughter started to obviously find her own profile, her own personality, and it was different to mine. And I then found that she was just really frustrating me. We were starting to clash. I wanted to change her. I didn't understand her. I didn't understand my husband very well, because he's quite like her. And what ended up happening was she ended up having this massive bout of depression when she was 15, to the point where she kind of just didn't want to be here anymore. She couldn't fit into this world. She was struggling with friendship. She was struggling learning. She was doing the best with what she had. And I did not understand her. And what was happening was I was making her feel 10 times worse about herself, because I did what you said about Will. I just said to her, well, change. You do have the power to just change, in my head. So we went through this horrible chapter as a family, where I had to then stop thinking like I think, and I had to learn how to think like she does. And I had to really understand how she processes everything. And I then had to become a strategic parent, and I had to change me to make sure that our relationship was good, so that I could help her through this difficult time. So I had to forget everything about being a therapist and just go back to learning how to be a better mum. And then through this process, we actually now got an amazing relationship. And we got her through this troubled times, and she had to get rid of a controlling boyfriend. She's now in a really happy place, and that's great. But for me, what I had to suddenly learn was it isn't about people just being able to change. I've got to be able to adjust the environment that they're in to allow them the space to change. So because, again, when you've got a good mindset, I just kept saying to myself, right, why am I going through this? What do I need to learn? Because whatever I'm going through now, it's really hard, and it was really challenging. I didn't want to be I was literally quite happy to pick my daughter up and just run away with her and mend her. But obviously I couldn't, because I had another child and a husband. So then I started to think, right, well, if I can help other parents not try and change their children, accept their kids, and actually teach their children how to be okay just being themselves. And then it kind of got bigger and bigger, because obviously me and my husband, we're complete opposite personality profiles, and where we were clashing, I was just taking it really personally, thinking he was being a bit of a twat, to be honest. He's probably thinking I'm being really controlling. And then I had to sit back and go, hold on a second, I'm not even taking the time out to understand him. So personally, I had to do this horrible thing, which was going back and going, right, people aren't like me. And I wanted them to be like me, because I'm a happy-go-lucky, bouncy sort of person that doesn't take life seriously. And I'm surrounded by all of these people that are taking life seriously and feeling depressed, and I can't cheer them up. And that's a real bugbear of mine, you know, because I want everyone to feel happy. So it started as that personal journey with me and my daughter. And I also then understood that she has, I then opened up the world of the spectrum, how we process information. And my daughter has ADHD. I didn't know that, because to me, ADHD was kids bouncing off the ceilings if they drank too much orange. So I then had to go into the world of learning, how do people process? How do we actually, what are the filters that we take in information through? And this has got nothing to do with, you know, how my parents were, what experiences I've gone through. It's just how does my brain work? So learning about ADHD, then obviously I realized that I had ADHD, but a different version of her. So I'm all bouncy ADHD and distractible and can't see things through. She was inattentive, so there's social anxiety. Again, for her, life is very challenging because she doesn't like talking to people. So she's very different to me. I talk for England, as I'm sure everyone's going to find out. So nothing made sense to me. And then I've got another daughter who I now know has got ADHD, and she's a bouncy one. And then I had to learn how to make adjustments for her, because the academic system doesn't support any of this. And what it does is it damages their self-esteem and makes them feel like they're failures, which I don't agree with. So that's my mission. Then what I realized is if I started to take it out, and obviously where I work with so many people, I then took it out into business as well. So I do a lot of work in companies in terms of getting them understanding each other better in work to create better teams. And again, that kind of has another bit of a why from when my dad ran his business, but that's not my real why. My real why is I personally had to go, I don't understand the people that I live with.
Yeah.
And they won't just change, and it's annoying.
And obviously the name of your company is Get You, Get Others.
Yeah.
And that's essentially where it starts, is that if you want others to change, I think, so was it Gandhi that said, be the change you want to see in the world? But I think more than that is that if you want change is what we're saying, change yourself, or at least understand yourself. Because if you can understand yourself, then you can understand others better. You can see things from their perspective. And what you've just said there as well a moment ago, which was, you came to the realization that we're not all the same. We don't all think the same. We do think differently. And when we have that awareness, then we can go, right, they're like this and they're like that. Well, let's talk about that then. So most of us that are listening to this have heard of some sort of personality test, Myers-Briggs, or all the different types of personality tests, 16 personalities that are all out there. Now, what you've done is you've sort of adapted a number of those and come up with shapes, essentially. So what are the shapes, and what's the benefits of knowing them?
The reason I chose shapes is because working with so many people that I have, and ones that a lot of people say to me they just don't fit in, or they don't know where they fit in. And I remember just coming up with an analogy once in a client session saying, do you know what? The world is just like a great big shape sorter, and we are all just trying to find out where we fit in most comfortable, and that might be a job, a school, people. So that's how the shapes come up, because it's easy one to say then, do I fit with you, or is that what makes us uncomfortable? So I've simplified everything, because for me, as soon as somebody says there's 16 personality types, I would have forgotten 10 of them in a nanosecond. So I've tried to keep it very simple so that it's easy for everybody to just understand. So we've got 4. I think actually there's really 2. If I really simplified it as much as I can. I think there's two sides to everybody. And it's funny, Will, because I know that we've spoken about this. I think there's a side of us where we want to keep people happy. And I think there's a side of us where we want to be in control. And I think we have more, some people have more controlling needs than pleasing needs, and vice versa. So I've kind of categorized them as there's two profiles. There's a heart and a square that are slower processors. Okay, so we think of everything about the speed of our brain. You've got very quick brain, Will, which is why certain people irritate you, because they take too long. Yeah, if you want something done, you want it done now, not in 2 weeks' time. And if that person is a slower processor to you, they need time to think about things. They need times to create a plan and a structure, which to you is just like, no, don't overthink it. Just do it. Let's go. Bam, 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 bam. That will put pressure on those because they like time to think. So we have the heart is very much all around, I want to keep everybody happy. And the things that they're going to really wrestle with are they'll end up doing things that don't make them happy. So often they're the clients that will walk in struggling with depression. There'll be bits of anxiety, but basically be low self-esteem because they would have got themselves caught up in, I just spend my whole life looking after everybody else and I've neglected me. We have our squares, which are kind of like the people who like to get everything right. So to them, they're very black and white. It's either right or wrong. And if you try and tell me that I'm wrong and I think I'm right, I will fight you to the death for that one. Yeah, they're very sort of literal. For them, they're very much like control, not of people, but of knowing what's happening. So they're quite an anxiety-based profile, and they are the overthinkers and the catastrophizers. So sometimes people might say, oh my God, you're being so negative. You're always looking out for what's going to go wrong. But that's just part of how their brain works. So there are those two profiles. The other two profiles are my quicker paced, and you'll know these people simply by the speed of them. They're not your kind of like, they won't be walking down the street, taking a little stroll and, meandering down the road. They'll be like walking at a quick pace. I've got somewhere to go. I've got something to do. So let's just get there as quickly as I can. So these are just genuinely quicker energies, and that will make you feel comfortable. You'll like to be around those because you're quick too. So one of them is the diamond, and this one is very much driven by fun, being stimulated. They hate being bored, don't like being on their own. They like to be sociable, like to be talking. And one of the issues that they will have is these will be the people that very often have lots of ideas but aren't great at grounding them and actually making them happen. So there can be a little bit, oh, I'm going to do this. It's like shiny penny syndrome. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Actually, they do nothing, because for them, planning, getting started is actually really quite challenging. But they do like people to be having a good time. Slightly different to a heart. A heart is, I want you to feel good. A diamond is, I want you to be having a good time. Yeah. So even if you feel a bit crappy, but you're dancing with me, I'm all right with that. Then the circles are, again, very quick energy, but these are the ones that are very competitive. So a diamond would play a game of tennis for fun and wouldn't care if they lost. A circle, if they couldn't win, probably wouldn't even bother having the game of tennis. They want to win. So they're very driven. They are very success driven. So they're either going to be money driven, they could be academic driven, because what they like is validation that they are successful. So they will like the nice cars. Sometimes they will be very ambitious, but they can lack an empathy. Okay. And that empathy is, because I want to win and I want to be successful, I can be very much focused on me and not on relationships. So a diamond, for example, is more bothered about relationships and having people around them. The circle's actually very much about what's in it for me. So if I was selling something to a circle, they're very good negotiators. They'll be, well, what's in it for me? Yeah, don't give me any waffle or fluff, just what's in it for me. And then I'll make my decision. So the problem that the circles will have is they can be workaholics. They can be very driven about their own needs, and they can forget about those needs around them. So they're more likely to struggle with relationships. Squares could struggle a bit. Hearts and diamonds are pretty good with relationships, but a circle doesn't mean to. They just have a filter that goes, it's about me. Yeah. And this is where obviously we've had conversations, Will, where people will start to circles. So if I look at business owners, they do tend to be, circles make brilliant business owners, entrepreneurs, because they have that drive. They're very quick making decisions. They'll act on things, and it's all or nothing. So they will give everything. But what they're not very good at is finding a balance. So work-life balance is really hard for them. You know, so very often they're not at home with their kids because they're at work, because that's where they that's where their kind of driver is, because that's success to them. So that kind of, in a real easy sort of nutshell. I mean, if I'm honest with you, the shapes are just a starting point. I can't say that if you tick the box of a circle, it means all circles are the same, because you're obviously made up of other layers. And that's the whole point.
And these like primary, because I've done it, and I'm a circle, right? But I'm also
diamond.
Yeah, Tad diamond. I take it. I'll be a diamond. I'm good with diamond. So I've got the report, and if you've been thinking, oh wow, this is fascinating, I'd love to know what shape I am. People can find out what shape they are for free by going to getyouGetOthers.com. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. As I say, it's worth doing the quiz. You can't say and it will give you a percentage of actually, I don't know, I'm 30% a heart, I'm 10% a square. So it will show you that you have these different traits. Because if I'm honest with you, Will, for you, if I just use you as an example, if you were a diamond in business, you wouldn't make as such good business decisions, because you could be a little bit too impulsive and not think enough. It could be a little shiny penny syndrome. Oh, that sounds good. Let's spend a lot of money in that. A circle makes good business decisions because they are looking very logically. How much is it going to cost? Like I said, what's in it for the business? Why would I invest my time? Circles are very time precious. They don't like giving up their time for something if they don't see why they would give, if there's not something in it for them. So we learn to change. Yeah, we learn to adapt. And this is, if I'm honest with you, you've said it brilliantly in the beginning. In your relationship, you would become too circle. Yeah, what you'd forgotten to do.
I've just pulled up my quiz results here. So I'm predominantly a circle, but I'm 53% circle, 21% diamond, 21% square, and 5% heart.
So again, you can't, and the reason for that, you can't go, I'm 100% this, because we're way too complex for that. And if you think about it, how you're made up is of how you process the world, what you've learned from your parents growing up. So what beliefs, values, ethics did you take on from them? But then what experiences have you been through? So if we go through a difficult experience, it can change us. And this is when people can go out of alignment with actually who they are. Because, for example, if I'm a heart and I've been in a relationship with somebody and I've been trying to keep them happy, and then that relationship's turned toxic, I could then flip and become a square that goes, I'm never going to do that again. That feels wrong. Now I'm going to be quite controlling. I'm going to be a lot more about me, not about relationships. So we can change based on an experience that we've been through, a painful one. Or it could be, if you as a diamond and it would cost you a lot of money, that you don't want to go through that again. So you'll become more circle because they're better with money. That's definitely how I am. You know, I'm a diamond and it's caused me a lot of financial problems. So now in business, I try and put on my more circle persona because I make better decisions and get it right all the time. So we can sometimes end up, it's a little bit putting masks on. You know, it could be, or I could be a little bit heart, a little bit square, a little bit this, a little bit that. And suddenly we go, I actually don't know who I am.
Yeah, but what you've just said there, though, is that we can, it's not a fixed thing. This can evolve and develop. I mean, you can learn to communicate differently and operate differently. You can, and that's part of what we're going to talk about here. So the thing that I would love to talk about in relation to using this as a tool is two elements of it. So the first element is that if people are single right now, because you work with a lot of people in regards to relationships, like intimate relationships. So if people are single right now, we can look at compatibility, because one of the things that we identified in my previous relationship is that actually, if you'd have sort of looked at my partner's profile or my profile before, actually it could have worked, but it's kind of going against the grain almost in terms of so you're making work hard for yourself, right?
That's it.
So there's that piece. But then what about the people that have been in a relationship for 10 years that might think they're uncompatible? Is that it? Are we calling a divorce lawyer and do we need to put their number at the end of the thing here? Like what is it we do? So I'd love to talk about those things. So the people that are single right now, what can they do? How can they use by having this awareness of what shape they are to meet their ideal partner? But equally, the people right now that are maybe in turbulent times, that things aren't going so well, what can they do differently to improve their relationship?
So the singles, I would say, because people will often say to me then, does that mean that I have to be with a certain profile? And I'm like, no, there are certain ones that are easier. So if you are a faster paced person, it is good for you to be with a quicker paced person. If you're with a slower paced person, sometimes it feels like they could hold you back a bit. And they can take, so if I'm honest, that's the first bit that can cause a little bit of a problem.
So I want to bring that up because there's a saying that most people would have heard of, which is opposites attract.
Now that is what happens, but opposites do attract. So right, so let me see if I can make this really simple. So I'm going to use you, Will, because it's easy to put a context around it. So you are a quick-paced person. You can be a bit impulsive. Sometimes we don't think all our decisions through and might later regret it. So what might be quite attractive to you is somebody that's a little bit more grounded, perhaps somebody that's a little bit more stable and reliable. So our natural attraction is something that we don't have. And for her, she might be attracted to your high energy, your spontaneity.
My devilishly handsome good looks.
Of course. I was just coming to that bit, Will. You didn't let me get there. So she's going to naturally get attracted to you, your ambition. So first of all, it's like, wow, this person's got what I don't have. And that's fabulous. That's called the honeymoon period. Yeah. That's where we do attract. But then what happens after we've kind of fallen out of the honeymoon period, and there's obviously more to the honeymoon period than just the profiling, but then that thing starts to aggravate you. So, for example, the fact that you like I'm just using this as an example, the fact you might like somebody who's a bit more stable, it ends up going, oh, come on, let's just do something a bit more spontaneous. I don't want to think about everything. I don't want to have planned what I'm doing for the next 3 weekends. I might like to just rock up on a Saturday morning and go, what should we do today? And she's going, oh my God, you never let me know what you're doing. How am I supposed to plan? You change your mind all the time. So the things, you're never home. So the things that used to attract us then start to stress us out, because actually we really do want somebody to be more like us because it feels comfortable. So that's when the relationships start to get stressful, and it could take a period of time. But then often what happens is when you realize that those bits are actually starting to annoy you, everyone's then invested quite a lot of time in the relationship. And through all the work that I've done, I think when you've invested time into something, it then makes you go, well, I don't want to walk away from it because I've invested time and I don't want to have to start again. So people then stay in these relationships just feeling stressy. And then eventually, because nobody changes, because they don't actually understand what the problem is, it inevitably will finish. It will get too bad. Or if you've got kids, you might then just have a little bit more of a volatile relationship. So my bit is, if in the beginning, when you met your partner and you had like this little passport, Will's passport that goes, right, just to let you know, this is who I am. These are my needs. This is how I make my decisions. This is what I need you to be for me. And you gave it to the person and said, can you meet those needs? And they went, actually, no, do you know what? I can't, because that part of your character will end up really pissing me off and that will cause us problems. But we don't do this because we don't understand what our actual needs are. You know that now, which is why you're in a happy relationship, because you understand now what your needs are. So yes, opposites attract, but it will come at a price later on if you aren't prepared to accept them for who they are. Yep. So I couldn't accept my daughter for who she was, because for me, she was too slow. I wanted to speed her up. She was an overthinker. I didn't understand about that. I say to her, don't worry about things. So I didn't accept her for who she was. So our relationship started to break down. As soon as I step back and go, no, I understand you and I will accept you, now our relationship's great. We know how to communicate now. But that's because she's my daughter. If that had been my partner, the chances are we'd have probably ended up splitting up at that point because it had got too stressful. So yes, opposites attract. 100%, you can go with any of the profiles as long as you accept them and don't try and change them. If they want to change themselves, fabulous. But if they don't, then you have to go, am I prepared to accept that? So, for example, am I prepared to accept the fact that, I'm just saying, Will's likely to work loads? Yeah, I am actually. That's okay by me. Or am I okay that Will may be a bit impulsive? Yeah, I accept that. Will I accept the fact that Will get a bit impatient and might sometimes just be like, come on, let's just do it without thinking? If I accept that about you, then that's fine. But it's when people aren't willing to accept those personality traits, if that makes sense. So in terms of being single, so I would say if you're a heart or a square, going out the heart and a square, that works really well. Yeah. And then when you do the quiz, there's also a link to an ebook, and the ebook does talk about compatibility in relationships. There's only so much you can kind of give in the beginning. Diamonds and circles, they work well together. Because again, it's that energies, it's the high energy. So there isn't
so just quickly, so then we send the fast energy, so you could have circle, diamond, and diamond that would all be good, and then you could have heart, square, heart.
Yeah. So I've done this little compatibility chart that actually says what are the benefits of each of the two profiles coming together and what are the top 3 issues they're going to have. Because remember, like I said, just because you're a circle, you could be a circle. Okay, so you could be a circle that when they grew up, their mum and dad taught them really lovely values around marriage. So you could be a circle that still really knows how to love somebody well. Or you could be a circle that went through a traumatic breakup of mum and dad, or dad didn't treat mum nicely. So you could be a circle that's also a bit of an arse, not because of an experience that he went through. So you really want to, for me, if you're single, I would say work on you first. Understand exactly what you do. Understand what is important to you. Why are you the way that you are? Can you be a better version of you? Not the best, just a better version of you. And then actually go, what is my definition of a relationship? What does love mean? Yeah. Put boundaries in so you don't accept poor behavior. Communication, you know better than anybody, communication is the key to everything. So if I can adjust my communication to yours, then suddenly we're talking a whole different relationship now.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the key thing out of all of the different profiles, is learning how the other person communicates and takes in information.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something you just said there that I was like, we need to parents.
Yeah.
Right. You said about parents. So one of the really eye-opening things for me, because like what tends to happen for those of you that listen to this, is I study lots and lots of different things, and I just find that interesting. But normally, if my client's got a problem or I've got a problem, I do deep dive in it and I just become obsessed with it for a short period of time. And that's what happened earlier on this year with regards to relationships. So I sort of did a bit of an immersive deep dive, which included working with you and lots of other reading and studying that I did. And what was fascinating for me that I kind of didn't realize, but I suppose it is kind of obvious when you think about it, is a lot of our beliefs and behaviors about relationships stem from our parents.
If you think about it, the first 11 years of your life, you are in your emotional part of your mind. Yeah, you're not logical at that age. You get logical as you become a teenager, which is why they become little shits and say, why should I? Yeah. So as a youngster, you just accept everything. And this is the sad bit. I mean, this is what I said about how you prevent mental health, is if you're going to have kids, have a really strong family unit about what love really means, and the child will just learn it subconsciously. It will set like a standard around what it expects, so it won't even entertain a bad relationship because it subconsciously learn how people are treated, and it won't accept anything else because it accepted that as its blueprint. So when you look at mum and dad, how their relationship is will pretty much determine how your relationship will end up. Now, what's likely to happen is you will repeat mum and dad's relationship. So say, for example, dad's quite controlling, mum's more sort of like submissive. If you've modeled yourself on mum and you're more of a submissive character, you're likely to go out and find somebody that's more controlling. And it would all be subconscious. It would just feel comfortable to you when you meet them. And then it will cause problems. And then you're going to say, bloody hell, I've ended up being like my mum and dad. I never wanted that. And the reason is, it's because it's subconsciously learned. So we then just repeat it. So when I work with any client, as you know, the first thing I'm interested in is what was going on around them those first 11 years, because that will definitely create the root of whatever the following problems will be. And often they're not found out until people are in their sort of like 20s, 30s. And the annoying thing is, again, when you're a parent, you've already learned what your parenting blueprint is. So again, so if dad was, I'm just saying, a bit more controlling, even though that might have felt uncomfortable as a parent, as a child, when you become a parent, you are more likely to be a controlling parent if you don't do work to learn how to do it differently. So those first 11 years are crucial to understanding who you are today. But we don't ask these questions when we go out on a first date.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being sat there over dinner? Oh, so tell me, what was your relationship like with your mum and dad? That'd be very very interesting indeed. But the key here, though, so there's two questions I've got to ask.
Yeah.
The first question I want to ask is that regardless of what your relationship was like with your whatever sort of relationship your parents had, and even if you didn't have parents but you had guardians or you're in care or whatever it might have been, it's changeable, right?
Yeah, 100%. That cool. So yeah.
So and secondly is, so for people right now, because you said there will be many people listening to this that have got kids or about to have kids, and you've said, well, it's very easily said, isn't it? You know, bring your kids up in a loving environment, right? And love them. And look, every action has a positive intention. People, I'm sure, feel that they're loving their kids, but as a therapist that's worked with hundreds and hundreds of people and seeing the highs and the lows and everything in between, what would be, I don't know, 3 to 5 things that people could do to demonstrate a more loving relationship to their partner that benefits their partner themselves and acts as the role model for their children?
So I would definitely say, so I've suddenly had an influx of young mums who want to have this perfect family. And I don't know if it's a little bit Instagram perfect, where you see all the smiley kids in their coordinated clothes, you don't see reality. But there's definitely this pressure about people more so now wanting to be these perfect parents. And I think it's coming from, when I look at the generations, there's the generation, I think, from like a lot of families were broken, they were divorced. I'm really old school because I'm that old that I didn't have any of my friends' parents were divorced. Might not have been great relationships, but nobody went through separation. It was really unheard of. And then as I think people are going, I don't have to put up with that crap anymore. That we then have got this kind of more broken families. So then what happens is that when you're a mum, you go, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through in terms of going through a separation. I want to get this right for them. I want them to avoid pain. So they try and focus a lot on the relationship they have with that child rather than the relationship that they have with their partner. Because I've said to so many mums recently, don't worry about the relationship with you and your child. That will take care of itself. if your child sees a really healthy relationship between their mum and dad, and it's loving and it's kind and it's they can communicate, they talk, they treat each other respectfully, they support each other's goals, and there's just this genuinely like calmness about the relationship. Now, that can sound a little bit idealistic. I'm sure people are going to go, yeah, that's great. But if I'm honest, I think if we focus more on the relationship of mum and dad and less on the relationship of dad and son, mum and daughter, that the children, because they just learn it. They just look at mum and dad and go, teach me, what does love mean? Teach me, what's a happy relationship? You know, teach me, how do I feel good about myself? Yeah. Now, if mum and dad are feeling good about themselves and they're not walking around going, oh, I'm a bad person, look at me, I look fat, I'm not good enough, and they learn negative language from either parent, or they see mum and dad, they see dad getting cross and mum going quiet, or mum kicking off because dad's got in late, and that's what they're modeling. It doesn't matter how good a parent you are to them, they are modeling the behavior of the adults. So, and it was a bit of so I've done this job for years, Will, but I worked with this young girl, she's gorgeous, and she was trying so hard to be this best mum. Her anxiety, her fear of getting things wrong, she was a square, so really scared of getting things wrong, overthinking everything. And I was like, but her and her husband weren't getting on. So I said, stop, let's get you and your husband on track. Let's work at that level. And then you just watch how your children will start to thrive. But we don't, yeah, we ignore that relationship because we take it for granted. Yeah, so that would definitely be one of my top tips, is don't worry about your relationship with your child as much as the relationship with your partner, because that's what your children need: stability, love, a place that makes them feel good. And my second top tip will be understand your kids. Don't tell behavior off, understand behavior. So if you've got a child that's angry, don't tell the anger off for being rude. Go, why are they feeling angry? What are they finding that's stressful that they're reacting in an angry way? If you've got a child that suddenly has gone quite withdrawn and doesn't want to be around the family, they want to be in their bedroom all the time, that's fine, but understand, you know, what's actually going on for them to make them feel that they don't want to be part of the family. What happens at school and with parents is we tell kids off. Don't do that because it's not what I agree with. You know, don't get angry, don't be rude, don't be lazy. But actually, we've got to go, but why they like it? Because they can't help it. That's what I did to my kid. Yeah, I told her she was lazy because she took too long to do everything. And all I ended up doing was making her feel like I didn't love her for who she was. You know, so it's that they're the two key things, and that's hence the you get others. Understand who you have around you. Obviously, understand yourself first. Learn to be strategic as a parent that goes, I need to adapt me to be able to be that mum for that child, and I need to adapt me to be what that child needs. It isn't a one size fits all. We're not robots. Yeah, but we just expect people to be how we want them to be. But fundamentally, if you want your children to be brought up in a loving home where they thrive with strong self-esteem, a strong understanding of how people should be treated, make sure you're the model.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. What I want to talk about now, because relationships, as much as we're talking about getting into great relationships, so starting with your compatibility and then improving those relationships by in all the ways that we've just spoken about, there is a very real reality that some relationships end.
Yes.
And that can be hard. You know, people who've been in relationships for long times, even short times, people can, it can be difficult. One of the things that I found really interesting when I was doing all of my research on relationships earlier this year about when relationships end is that typically, and you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or back me up on anything here, is that typically when a relationship ends, it's not necessarily that relationship that hurts us that much. Great. Yes, it plays a role, but it's the compound of lots of previous relationships that have then ended. A little bit like if you cut your arm and it doesn't heal, you only have to touch it and it can be painful. And it's like you're opening up an old wound almost when it comes to that breakup. So sometimes you could be people who've actually not been in a relationship very long at all, and it feels really traumatic, but because that's from unhealed past relationships that have ended. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. And it will come from, so I always say when you're in a relationship today and it ends, it's a symptom, it's not the root. So most of us can handle a bit of rejection. Most of us can handle, oh Christ, I've got to start again. It's changed. I don't know what I'm doing. Or we can handle a bit of, oh, I don't feel great about myself. We can do that a little bit because we're resilient. But when it gets to a point when you finish with a relationship and it's like your world has ended, it's because it's a pattern. And this is exactly what we say. So the pattern has been showing up through life, and it may not even be in other loving relationships. So for an example, if I was in a relationship with you, Will, and you left me for another woman, and I thought, oh my God, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, and I felt really bad, it might not have been that I was in a relationship with a boyfriend that made me feel like that, but potentially I might have been, I don't know, bullied at school. I might have had one of my parents actually was quite critical and made me feel like I was never good enough for them. So I can take it all the way back. It will always go back to parents. I'm sorry, I do blame parents for everything, not because they're bad people. We don't know what we're doing. And as I said, I have to take it on the chin for me, what I did to my kids. And it's not nothing's intentional. We just don't know what we're doing, particularly emotionally. So it's the pattern. So I would say to anybody, if you've come out of a relationship and it's really rocked your world, it's time for you to create a stronger emotional foundation, because part of the process that I will take people through is looking in those first 11 years, how was your emotional foundation put together? You know, those needs that we have around feeling good, feeling safe. If they weren't programmed in subconsciously in a positive, healthy way, that's the work that needs to be done to then restabilize the foundation that says, now people can't knock my scabs off. Yeah. And actually what happens is, you know, the wounds heal and they're just scars that don't hurt. They're just reminders of where you've been. Yeah. So that to me is absolutely spot on. Nobody is powerful enough today to rock your world if it's never been rocked before, if that makes sense. Which is why, like you said, sometimes people go, geez, why are you so bothered about it? Get over it. It's like, how the hell do you get over what potentially has been years worth of a pattern?
There's a saying that I love, which is if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed over people that didn't cut you.
There you go. Because you will take it out. And the big one here for that is I'm just going to use being cheated on because it's an easy one for everyone to understand. If someone's cheated on me and I didn't deal with that and I didn't heal from it and I didn't do the work that needed to be done, then in my next relationship, yeah, I will then become quite controlling. I want to know where that person is. I will take it out on that person, the fact that the other person hurt me. I say the biggest thing that gets in the way of a good relationship is the past.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not the past. Do you know what I mean? It's the past of everything.
So a little story, personal story. So when I for years I was in relationships with two types of people. I was either in relationships with girls that were amazing, that were absolutely incredible, and I would screw it up in one way or another, or I was with the crazies, the crazies, as I'm going to call them, knowing that the relationship kind of wouldn't last, but it was just a temporary thing. And what about, I don't know, 6 years ago now, 5 years ago now, I had a bit of a moment. And the moment that I had was really eye-opening. So for years, when everyone said, like, what's your type? You know, like, are you a boobs guy? Are you a bum guy? Like, what's your type? I've always said eyes and smile. That's been my thing. Nice eyes, and nice smile. And one day it dawned on me, which I'd completely forgotten about. When I was about 6 years old, I used to have a girlfriend at primary school. I started early, you see. I had a girlfriend called Kelly McCormack. So Kelly, if you're listening to this, great to reconnect. And Kelly McCormack. So, and Kelly was Australian, and at 6 years old, we do what all 6-year-olds do when you're in a relationship at 6 years old, walk around the playground holding hands and all that, whatever. And one day, Kelly McCormack just left. Right. Wow. So she, her parents must have been contractors over here or something. And one day she was just gone. Right. The love of my life at 6 years old just left me. Mm. And when I had this realization 20 years later, wow, that's where it's from. Because guess what? Kelly McCormack had beautiful eyes and beautiful smile, nice straight teeth. And I was like, wow, that's where it's come from. But what it also come from was that she just left. Yes. So obviously I was then, from the age of 6 years old, subconsciously fearful that people that people are going to leave me. So the really nice girls that are really great and tick all the boxes and all the rest of it, I would screw it up so that I didn't get left by them, or I would be with people that I knew I wouldn't be with long term. So if they did leave, I wasn't bothered.
There you go. And between the ages of 2 and 6, when something happens to you, even just looking at the age that you were at 6, at that time you were looking around your life to fulfill the need of security. What makes me feel safe and secure, and what's consistently in my life? If that happened to you when you were 10, it would have had a different impact on you. But because you was all around, how do I avoid pain? So it's our need of certainty. How do I avoid pain? How do I feel safe? What's consistent? We don't like change in those years. We like everything to be the same. But because you were 6, it was at that time of you trying to meet that need. So there would the anxiety be, and that's where the fear would be. Yeah. So that's spot on. Very well done.
So interesting. And Kelly, if you're still out there, just let me know. I mean, I have searched for you on Facebook, but what now? Talking about breakups, right? There's something that I'm seeing a lot at the moment. Now, you've already mentioned social media. You said social media mums are these sort of perfect mums, and you see it in business. You know, the people that we tend to compare our chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. Well, what I'm witnessing a lot on social media right now is this, what I deem as actually quite toxic behavior around narcissism.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm coming at it from a different perspective here, because there's lots of people right now talking about how there's narcissist this and narcissist that, and avoid this red flag and avoid that red flag, which I have quite a strong opinion on. Now, I've actually been called a narcissist. In fact, my ex was like, you're a narcissist. You've got all these narcissistic traits and whatnot. I have quite a strong opinion on it, which I'm going to share now, which is that no one is narcissistic, right? We all have narcissistic behaviors, and we all have altruistic behaviors, which is the other end of the spectrum. So narcissism is when it's all about us, altruism when it's all about others, and we have those behaviors. But when someone is constantly, and I mean constantly, there's a pattern of them having narcissists in their life, to use that label, it's a pattern that's showing up because they're not empowering themselves enough, and therefore they're being over empowered by others. And for as long as they keep allowing others to empower them, then they will be disempowered and therefore label people as narcissists, which, me saying that, could be deemed as a narcissistic comment because I'm saying that. I would love to know your opinion around narcissism, and if you've witnessed this and seen this yourself.
So for me, when I said even about the profile and the shapes, the hearts, those people, like you said, are those that it's all about others, and I'm going to make everybody happy. They are like the most likely profile to end up being with somebody that can control them, because the thing that they find the hardest is putting in boundaries. So for them, because they are so driven by keeping people happy, that they are likely to not look at their own needs. So for me, so the hearts are those that are easiest to be controlled, because they are just so driven about, are you happy with me? Have I pleased you? The circles are the very dominant characters, because they are more driven by that kind of, what's in it for me? I want results. I'm not going to invest my time in something if I don't see the point. Quite black and white. Just in terms of, they'll just say it as it is. I'm sorry if it upsets you, but I'm just going to say it as it is. They're not bad people. It's just how their brains work. So we have this thing, and I agree with you, it really upsets me when people call people narcissists, because, and that's something I'm going to say, when you came into my office for the first time, I feel that you were going, because of what had been said, but I actually think I'm a good person. So I'm confused. Why would somebody say that about me? And actually, I think I'm a nice person. And that's what happens. It's the heart can't put boundaries in. If the heart doesn't put boundaries in, they will get controlled. That's it. Yeah. So for me, if I work with the heart, it's exactly what you said. Empower yourself with the ability to say no, with the ability to walk away quickly, with the ability that says, I'm actually thinking about my needs, not yours. And I'm going to tell you that. And I'm going to get you to listen. Now, another trait of a circle and a little bit of a diamond is they're not always great listeners, because they're quite distracted. And if somebody needs to say, if someone takes too long to say something, their brain can't hold attention to listen to everything that they're saying. So it will switch off a little bit, or they get impatient and go, what's the point? Get to the point. It's kind of like, it's boring me now. But for a heart who has to talk everything out and they want to express themselves, they will feel shut down. They will feel, you don't listen to me, you don't care about me. But that's just a mismatch of communication. So I think the hearts would call a circle narcissistic, and it's not true. Now, a square can also come across like that, because they like to be in control. So they're not likely to want to control a person. They will want their environment in control. So again, we'll get frustrated and tell people what to do. If it doesn't meet what they want, they can be quite black and white, but they are quite good communicate. They will listen more so than the circle. So I've had a lot of people come in, phone me up, saying, my husband is narcissistic, he's controlling, he doesn't listen to me, it's all about him, all of that. And you meet the husband, you think, no, it's not. It's just a different personality type. But your problem, heart, is you've allowed all this to happen.
Yeah.
And what happens, if I'm honest with Bill, just on this last bit with that. So what happens is they'll put up with it. So I'll keep putting up with your behavior. I won't tell you, because a heart, again, doesn't want to upset you, because that's its driver. So it'll stay in this relationship that isn't working. The circle's are oblivious, because no one's told him that no one's happy. So they're just cracking on doing what they've always done. The heart's there going, still haven't changed. They still haven't changed. And they'll take their time to get out of that relationship. But that by that time, it's actually damaged their self-esteem, because of how they've interpreted the other person's behavior, rather than going right at the beginning, oh, I'm really sorry, but the way you said that, or when you did this, that wasn't okay. And here's my boundaries. And if you do cross it, I'm going to leave you. And when they cross it, you leave them. But they don't. They stay in it. We stay in it. We say, because we hope that that person's going to change, but we never tell them how to. Yeah. And I'd say it's the hearts and the circles more than any other profile that you'll get that analogy of, you're a narcissist. But actually, what I want to say to the heart is, did you put in boundaries? Did you communicate? And did you walk away quick enough?
There's a good friend of mine who's a coach over in America, in Miami. And one of the things that he said, which really hit home with me when I first heard it 4 or 5 years ago, is, well, when we get really upset that someone has done something to us, what we're really upset about is that we allowed it to happen.
Absolutely. When I work with anybody and they come in and they're angry, can't believe it. He did this. He said that. God, she was so nasty. How could they possibly do this to me? I can't believe. And then I'll stop and I'll say, who are you really angry at? Who are you really angry at? And they go, myself. Why are you angry with yourself? Because I allowed everything.
Allowed it.
Yeah. It is the biggest game changer when you take personal responsibility for your own behavior in terms of your own boundaries. It is not somebody else's fault if you've put up with our crap.
Yeah.
It's not, I can't blame you. If I allow you to keep doing the same thing, and all I do is I go, oh, he doesn't love me very much. He can't love me as much because he keeps doing this thing to me, but I haven't owned it and personally been responsible for it. It's not your fault, it's mine.
Yeah.
But people want to blame. I tell you what happens, Will. I would say people love to blame. It's your fault, their fault, his fault, her fault, work's fault, that fault, because we don't understand ourselves. And this is where I originally come back to understand why you don't put boundaries in. Yeah. Like I said, is it just something that your brain finds very hard, or are you scared to put the boundary in because actually you'd rather not be on your own than be in a relationship that was not great for you? So all of our fears have been on our own. And if I'm honest, I am, for you, that was a big thing for you to go, actually, I'm all right being on my own. And the moment you do that, everything changes, because then you don't have to put up with things that you don't want to, because you're all right on your own. And then you can go and wait and be patient and not settle for the right one for you, which is what, it's lovely that you've done that now, which is great. But we're also scared to be on our own.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. So we have covered a lot of ground, and we could talk about this all day. And I know you could literally talk about this all day.
Sorry, I'm a
but
diamond.
we've got to move forward. And I know you've got things to do as well. So for everyone that's been listening to this, and I'm sure they found this incredibly insightful, and they're chomping at the bit to learn more. Yeah. How can people find out more? How can people get access to find out what shape they are? How can people connect with you, learn more? Let them know.
So if you go onto my getyougetothers.com website, you can do the quiz on there, and that's free. The quiz, once you've done it, you'll get a little PDF that tells you a little bit about yourself. You'll then be able to get an ebook where I talk about all the personality profiles and how they interlink, how they communicate, make decisions together. So I've kind of put it in an ebook so people can have that instant access to how they can apply the information straight away and get better relationships with everybody. I've got a clinic in Chelmsford, and we'll be running different workshops. And again, if they want to come and talk to me about relationships or family issues or whatever it may be, they can just message me on the website, and then I'll let them know all the events and stuff we've got coming up. Because like I always say to anybody, the quality of your life is based on the quality of your relationships. And that is it. And all of us want is to be loved.
Wonderful. Well, what a great comment to end on there. Suzanne, lovely to see you as always. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with everybody that's been listening to this. Guys, go and connect with Suzanne. Go and take the quiz. We'll put the link in the comments in the show notes somewhere so you can get access to that straight away. Go and do it. And until next time, make it happen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.